Hi, I'm Jay Fergus. I use they them pronouns. You may also know me as Cheers Mix J from Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, RIP question mark. I review bars for Time Out LA. I'm a contributor over at Punch Magazine, and I've written about how people eat and drink for nearly 10 years.
And I'm Kasumobi. My pronouns are she, they. I work as a project manager and workflow strategist for both independent creatives and for tech companies like Skillshare and BuzzFeed. And I know nothing, nada, zip, about booze and booze history.
And that's just fine. I'm happy to teach you. This first season of All Mixed Up is focused on what it means to drink as a Black person through the lens of the diaspora.
What did we make millennia ago throughout Africa?
Why don't we get enough credit for our role in the rise of rum?
How do stereotypes affect how much we drink?
And of course, how powerful are our dollars, EC, Naira, and Rands?
These are heavy questions, but we're going to try to keep it light.
Above all else, this is a story of Black ingenuity, and it's begging to be told.
So I was wondering if you knew anything about alcohol from Africa.
I actually know a fair amount about African alcohol. I don't know everything because, weirdly, over time, there's just not a lot of remaining records to really parse down specifics. But there is still some things to know. It's a big continent and a lot of time has passed, and I'd be happy to share some things with you. Why don't we start with what you know about African alcohol?
I know only what I know from being a Nigerian, which is palm wine. And that's about it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
That, you know what, that is a great place to start. I can definitely talk about palm wine. I think a fun thing to do would be to do a little game where we'll see how you did at the end.
Ooh.
So here's just a few different kinds of alcohol from all over Africa, and I'm going to have you rank them in order of how wasted you think you would be after 3 servings.
Okay, perfect.
So you've got sorghum beer, booza, akpateshi, and palm wine. So just in relation to each other, how intense do you think these alcohols are?
All right, so going from least to most intense, I'm gonna guess sorghum beer because I know what sorghum is and I know what beer is, and I'm just gonna assume that that's not gonna like have you falling off chairs.
Yeah, like you could do a 5K the next morning, probably.
Yeah, you won't feel great depending on how much you have, but like you'll survive. And then I'm gonna say palm wine after that. Palm wine is delicious, but I don't find it to be very intense. And then akpateshi, I have no idea what that is. Very excited to find out. But something about the energy I'm getting from the word, just the vibes off of that collection of glyphs feels like, it's going to do something, but like it's not going to send you to space. And then booza, because it's called booza. And there's definitely an intensity that word to me. That's the guess. How did I do?
Into the etymology of that, definitely. I think we'll just take it case by case and we'll find out as we go along.
Okay.
How about that? We're going to start with beer in general. Famously enjoyed by the poor and enslaved when building the pyramids, you have booza, which is a type of beer, actually.
Oh.
This is at least 5,000 years old. Some hieroglyphics suggest it might be as much as 8,000 years old. So this is really ancient Egypt, maybe a little bit in neighboring Sudan, which at that time would have been Nubia.
Okay.
Booze is made using fermented bread. It's unclear whether malt was used back in the day, but you basically have this bready, yeasty base that gets finished off with fruits, spices, and honey to adjust the taste.
That sounds delicious, actually.
Yeah, just like a drink and a snack.
I kind of wish I had some of that right now.
It's basically a type of porridge beer, which is a weird concept, but there's not a lot of filtration happening, so it's pretty nutritious.
That actually appeals to me deeply. As so- as someone who's like, well, first of all, I love meals. Hot take. But like one weird thing about me is like I love a gruel like texture. Like I love a porridge. I love a gruel. I love an oatmeal. Like
Listen, I'm with
a
you.
drinkable alcoholic cream of wheat sounds so fucking fire. I'm not gonna lie. That sounds incredible. That sounds I'm actually now a little sad that I'm not currently drinking that.
Just after this, you just open up a packet of cream of wheat and just start like
Just let it
putting beer in
ferment.
it. Like, this is the same. This is the same.
Yeah, if anyone wants to come over and make this for me, I would love you forever. And do your taxes or something. Not well, but I'll do it.
We'll take porridge beer for services. The barter economy.
Absolutely. It's like why did we move away from the barter economy? Oh, because money's more efficient? No. Because we stopped making good booze. That's it.
Booze was actually a huge part of Egyptian society. Like ancient Egyptians were pretty big partiers, like regardless of class. Like you were getting paid in beer quite often. So it was worth it back then. I mean, you live somewhere, you can like get your clothes, whatever. Like what I need is food and something to do during the day.
Honestly, bars. Like truly. Oh, I assemble a cool building. Somebody nearby plays some music. We all drink our like alcoholic bread smoothies. Life is good. Nobody got eaten by a crocodile this week. Just living the dream.
That's a great week. That's exactly probably the level of celebration. Just like, hey, no one was taken.
Yeah, no one was taken by the Nile today. Party at my house.
I'm sure also is just definitely cleaner than water to drink. That's so much of the alcohol like evolution that we get back in the day is just, well, water's real hit or miss here. So we're gonna make it special water.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's either this beer I diluted a little bit, or it's that cholera soup that we get out of our well.
Cholera soup coming soon to a civilization near you. I do know a bit about the booze etymology because I thought about that as well immediately, just coming across this. So booze is Middle English coming from Middle Dutch. The earliest recording of this is maybe the 14th century, but there's this like Turkish book from the 11th century. It might be Persian also, but the agreed upon facts are that the Mongolians took it to Europe and then it made its way down into North Africa.
Wait, when you say Mongolians took it to Europe and it made its way down to Africa, do you mean just the term, like the word, or the concept of it? Okay.
You hear booze and you're like, booze? Is this just the oldest alcohol we could find and think of? But yeah, that's as far back as you can get on booze versus booza, but it's definitely, think Genghis Khan, I guess, for bringing the terminology of booze to the Western world.
Genghis Khan is such a controversial girly, but an influential one, undeniably.
Yes.
My God.
Mixed legacy, honestly, but we're all his descendants, so.
Not all of us. No. A certain region of the world, but not me. It's just such a not like other girls moment for me. I was just like, not me.
Certainly not me. No, I don't actually. No, I'm not. I'm not a genealogist in any any sort of way. I have no idea if we are all descended from Genghis Khan, but I feel like most of us are, and enough time has passed where enough of those people might have started cross pollinating with different cultures. So
I mean, it's a lot of us. It's a lot of us. More than should be like possible for one guy, for sure.
yeah, but there were also fewer people then. Like if you go
That's
back
true.
far enough, I think Beyonce and Celine Dion are related. Like they have a shared ancestor. That's
Well, that makes
just
complete sense to me, actually. Yeah.
yeah, just powerhouse vocals, genetics.
Vaguely
Um,
French. Well, in Celine Dion's case, not vaguely. Very, very, very French. Very,
yes,
very
deeply French.
Quebecois. But yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you again, Mr. Khan. Would normally say like love your work, but really, really in your case,
Yeah. Thank you, question mark.
yeah. Thank you, question mark. Very aware of your work.
Back to Booza. So ancient versions of this would be around 10% alcohol by volume, but now it's more like 7%. It's generally home brewed and it's very locally different and specific based on what you have around you. But
Mm,
it still uses everyone who's making it at home uses these millennia old traditions. So it's this a tradition that's really like steeped in so much history.
yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, and this is kind of the case for all foods. And this drink sounds like it really does qualify somewhat as a food or almost a dish. Especially in the case of this, it's like gotta be this sense of you're kind of drinking the region in like a very hyper local sense.
Yeah,
Like to some
absolutely.
degree, you are drinking the flora and the fauna of that little particular zone of that area, and that's really
Yeah.
cool. And you can get a little
Yeah.
tipsy. That's even better.
hmm Just get a little sauce as a
Yeah, a little
treat.
buzzed.
Well, if you're feeling this good about porridge beers, we can get into sorghum beer. Porridge beer of Booza is definitely more North African. There's some versions of it all over nowadays, but when you're getting further south within Africa, you're usually going to be talking about a sorghum beer.
Okay.
So these tend to be kind of cloudy and they can be made with various local grains like sorghum, which is a type of grass, millet, which is more of a cereal grain, and more recently, it's been made with cassava root.
Oh, interesting.
I'm very intrigued by that one. I would love to find some modern sorghum beer to enjoy sometime soon. Like Booza, this is a lot more of a you know a guy kind of alcohol. It's very much a homebrewed situation. Well, I guess I should say you know a woman,
Mm,
because brewing has historically been woman's work throughout Africa, which is an interesting thing to think about when you think about home brewing nowadays in America. There's a very specific image of just like a white guy with a beer in his
yeah.
garage. But, but some of the first ones to do it and going all the way up to now are these African women.
Right on. I love that. Because, yeah, once you say like home brewing, I picture a bespectacled econ major living in a university co op with too much family money and not enough of a fear of food
Mm-hmm.
poisoning, just
Yes.
creating a local food hazard in his kitchen. So it's it's
Mm-hmm.
actually really great to remember that. Yeah, it was like classic women's work, stirring up a literal brew.
Yeah, not modern. What if I gave my friends botulism?
Yeah.
Ancient, we're doing this with what we have, and it's going to be great.
Yes.
What I think is really cool about sorghum beer specifically is that it's alive when you drink it. It's still fermenting.
Oh.
Yeah, you're still getting a lot of these nutrients coming through, so it's like booza in that way, but it's still kind of working and bubbling a little bit. It has maybe a sour aftertaste, but West African brewers over time have kind of figured out ways to do this where it's a little bit gentler on the palate. But yeah, with this living booze, there's a sweet spot in the process where it's basically good for 2 to 3 days. It's hard to turn into a commercial product. That hasn't stopped Anheuser-Busch from trying, but
Boo. Boo. Do you like me unilaterally deciding that we're never going to have sponsors? Boo.
boo.
So not only is it delicious and nutritious and good for what ails you, it's also just by its very nature not capitalism friendly. It's just like by definition of the
You
people.
really have to know someone, and they had to have made it yesterday. Like,
Well, I kind of love that too because it's so much. It really lends itself to that sort of like, and this is a very African lifestyle and like life setup and pace, which is that there's always somebody wandering by and stopping in to visit and
mm,
hanging out for like hours on end, you know? And so it's like, yeah, it's
yes, we're leaving any moment now, and 5 hours
5 hours
later.
later. You're halfway through the barrel. Yeah, exactly. It's just like, it's the kind of thing that can only become a thing in a society where people value having unstructured time to hang out with each other and spend quality time together.
I love unstructured time. I think productivity is the worst thing the West has done to the world. I don't know, that's hyperbole. There's but I think even all of the actual like violence and stuff that stems from Western imperialism and all of that stuff, it does come down to this need to be productive and efficient. And it's just like you could just vibe.
That's very true, actually, right? It's like fundamentally a lot of the most heinous actions in history come from somebody deciding, well, it's just more efficient if we get rid of you, or it's just more efficient if we enslave you, or it's just it's just business, baby. And yeah, I
Yeah.
kind of love uh, a beverage that embodies the antithesis of that, which is like your status as just a human being and the time I spend with you as a human being is the point. And this is obviously not pretending that African societies are just like classless, hierarchyless utopias, but it at its best, it definitely embodies a lot of that.
I couldn't agree more. It's so great to come across drinks that just feel like the part of a culture and a community. Like just the act of enjoying it, you're in it. You're in the mix.
Okay, so that's Booza and sorghum beer.
Yes, and sorghum beer can get up to 8%, but it's generally quite low, around 2 to 4% ABV. So it's less potent than a White Claw, more of a sibling to hard kombucha.
Okay. And that makes
Yeah,
sense too, because it's really more about like nourishment and refreshment as opposed to like, let's get smashed.
yeah, yeah. We're just hanging out, having a refreshing drink. But yeah, before we get into the other alcohols that we mentioned, we're going to take a brief detour back into North Africa just because I really wanted to talk about a couple of local, a little bit more modern booze that they have going on. When you think of North Africa, especially over the last millennia, as it's become more and more Muslim, I think there's a lot of people who might just think, "Oh, there's no booze culture there. There's no alcohol or anything like that because there's generally a lot of teetotaling and sobriety." But in Morocco and Tunisia, Jewish minorities have a long-standing relationship with figs that challenges that sort of generalization of the region.
Ooh, keep talking.
I've said the magic word, figs.
Yeah, legitimately.
So there's Moroccan Mahia and Tunisian Buka, which are fully distilled spirits that top out around 40% ABV.
Whoa.
Yeah, they're basically like eau de vie, which is water of life. So it's brandy, but from a different fruit, from not grapes.
Ah, okay. Sick. I love that. We made a critical error in not having like a little flight of each of these things for me to try as we're
Oh my
talking
god.
about them. Because now I want each of them so bad.
I mean, we can figure out a way to do that
Yeah.
going forward. I think for this is just so hard because so many of
Oh, yeah,
these
of course.
require
We would have to know
like
several
we
guys.
would need we would need a plug. We would need
Yeah. We'd have to know so many very specific people.
and hey, if you're listening and you're that guy,
Or more likely, statistically, lady.
yes, statistically, if you're that lady, cheersmxj@gmail.com. Yeah, so Mahia is noted for more of this anise, however you want to say it, flavoring, where bukas can have a much stronger fig taste, which is spiced with things like
Oh,
cardamom.
and it's
It's very kind of
spiced?
like,
Fuck
yes.
yeah. See, here's my thing. I'm not a big like drinking alcohol to get drunk person, mostly because my
Mhm.
tum tum doesn't like that. But I, hello, my name is Cosimo B, and I'm 80 years old. But I do just love anything that's got like an interesting flavor. Once it's aromatic,
hmm
ooh, get me in, get me in.
This is the time for you to be alive. I feel like we're getting so many more niche spirits that I think drinking is getting more interesting. But I agree with you in not wanting to just like drink to get drunk. I always say it's a line from the movie. It's, oh, I can't remember the name of it now. It's a Reese Witherspoon rom com where she says at one point, I don't drink to feel better. I drink to feel even better.
Ooh,
Uh, so that's generally been my philosophy. Don't take a bunch of this depressant when
yeah.
you're feeling down. But like, hey, someone's what pop that champagne. Like, let's celebrate. Let's do it up, but it doesn't have to be we're getting blackout drunk every night.
Yeah, you can't medicate with it. You can only intensify whatever mood you're already in. And when you think about it
Mm.
that way, it becomes so much easier to go, oh no, this is not the day for me to break out with the tequila, actually. Let's not. As opposed to like, oh, I feel so great and effervescent already. Why not complement that with a little champagne? F's in the chat for everyone who just had to hear me pronounce champagne. But yeah, I love to hear about this. And even the name Mahia is so,
Mm.
man, that just feels like something I should have a little glass of.
There is a company that makes it actually in my hometown in Yonkers, New York, and I think they're the only ones making it stateside.
Whoa. We're taking a road trip to Yonkers.
Get in the car, we're getting figs.
We're getting figs and like Hello Dolly paraphernalia. Which actually I would be so down for.
But yeah, in terms of age, these are generally younger than the other drinks we're talking about. Mahia is vaguely hundreds of years old. It's hard to pin down the origin of it. Buka only goes back to 1820,
Oh.
which only 1820, but but when you're talking about, 8,000 years ago, 1820 feels like nothing.
Yeah, if you're a history nerd and somebody says something about 1820, you're like, oh, yesterday. That feels like a time I should remember, actually.
Yeah, just a few generations ago, really. That's just the quick detour. I really wanted to mention those two. We have to talk about some of the richest history of all, palm wine, and I guess a little colonialism too.
Boo.
Hold on, someone's got to use the phone, so I'll call you right back. Hey, I'm back.
Sweet. Okay, so I think we were talking about palm wine, right?
Yes, this is the one that you knew about. So you might be familiar that palm wine doesn't look like your average wine. It's a little cloudy, and like local sorghum beers, it's often on a tight schedule.
Yeah.
This was really fun to learn about because people will climb or fell these palm trees to tap them for the sap. And the sap just starts fermenting from just errant yeast in the air. Most winemakers have something kind of like a sourdough starter to get things going, but from my understanding, within a couple of hours, you have palm wine, but a day later, you might have palm vinegar.
Yeah.
You can pasteurize it, but I think the freshness will really just send people deep into the forest for a taste.
Yeah, listener, if you ever have the opportunity to get yourself some palm wine, don't bother with pasteurization. And this is the hot take that gets us sued. Like if you can get it so fresh that it doesn't need to be pasteurized, go for that instead. It is worth it.
You heard it here first, all mixed up. We don't believe in pasteurization. That's the clip. That's what goes viral.
Every day I wake up and I slap a picture of Louis Pasteur and stomp on his legacy. No, friends, please pasteurize all your other beverages. Thank you.
The freshness is a whole thing. There's rich people who have employed tappers to just supply them with fresh palm wine, which that's a real flex, honestly.
Yeah, I can't say that I don't see the appeal. Yeah, that's an extremely African thing to do. to flex your local
Yeah,
auntie flexing by having someone go retrieve palm wine on tap and retrieve and brew palm wine on tap. My God.
we're having guests go find a tree somewhere. Please help. I'm actually going to send you a piece of a Yoruba eulogy to just read out loud.
Ooh. Here we go. The tapper taps in gladness, the mistress of tuppence, yet the chaste millionaire into the forest. You are that which the horse drank till it forgot its horns.
I remember finding this and I had to hold on to it and bookmark it. I guess it is a fairly commonly used in these eulogies, and it's very poetic, obviously, but to think about something that is part of this ceremony of like celebrating a life, and you're taking a break to even talk about palm wine
Yeah.
just just speaks to the cultural importance of it to a level of trying to think other than Christianity. It's something where we're just talking about wine.
You want this? Genghis Khan is about to enter the chat again. It feels a lot like how in really horse centric societies, like there's always going to be some mention of a horse or analogy about how you're like a horse or the promise of a gift of a horse in like any major life event because it's just that central to like what makes life good and worth living for people there. As someone who's scared of horses because their nostrils are big and scary and full of secrets, I'm very much in favor of it being palm wine instead. I love my people.
I'm wondering if I should delve deeper into this horse fear, but I feel like we have to move forward.
There's no time. There's no time.
At me personally, if you want to know more about
if you're some sort
relationship
of
with horses,
freelance therapist, reach out to us.
Okay. So palm wine is another living drink. It starts off kind of milky and sweet and gets a little bit more sour as you're drinking it just because of this freshness timeline. It can come from raffia palms, coconut palms, date palms, and oil palms, that stuff that's in all of the things you get from Trader Joe's. And it's generally 2 to 15% alcohol by volume. So it really varies, I guess, by tree and method. So you don't really know what you're getting into until you're into it.
My experiences of palm wine have always been pretty mild. So it's interesting to find out that it gets a little higher than what you would give a kid. But, that's nature, baby.
And that's just, sometimes I feel like that's just a little part of the Black experience. Like, we're all just assuming this is very chill. Like, growing up, these like West Indian rum cakes are a big part of the holidays. And it's like, oh, well, the rum like cooks off. And it's like, but then you soak the cake in a rum syrup.
They're like, well, yeah, the rum cooks off, but we replace it. Don't worry.
It's back with a vengeance.
When we said happy holidays, we meant happy holidays to everyone.
One more important thing about palm wine is that it might actually be one of the oldest types of alcohol, going back to 16,000 BC.
Whoa.
I remember hearing about this and I tried to look into it and I couldn't get more specifics around that particular date, but it does make sense. Like if you're in an area where you're surrounded by palm trees, I can see you discovering this by accident and just telling everyone you know. Like, hey, I've discovered something delicious just by hitting this tree. You want in?
Absolutely. I feel like the first person who ever discovered it. And then maybe a couple weeks later, they were like, okay, everybody, I got something to tell you. Been in a real good mood this week, and here's why.
Yeah, this is why I'm the life of the party now. Let's talk about palm wine all grown up, which is Akpateshi.
Ooh. And so I believe this is one of the ones that I ranked. It was in the top 2 for me. I guessed that it would be pretty intense, but I think I ended up putting Booza first, which was probably incorrect. Now that we know what it is.
Yes, but your instincts that this might be a bit stronger were correct. This is Ghanaian Akpateshi, where you take palm wine and then you distill it.
Oh.
It actually has other names from different regions. Like Agogoro is made particularly with raffia palms, and then there's another version called Apio. But there's some names like Kill Me Quick that give you a pretty good sense of what a shot of this will do to you. It's a real name. It's a real colloquial name.
Damn.
That people just walk up to another person and then they ask for that. And instead of violence, they get a glass.
At the point that you walk up to somebody and ask for Kill Me Quick. Wow. Go off.
It's a very culturally specific moment. I don't recommend it in day to day. Depending on where you are.
Please don't try this at home if you are not in the region where this is already a thing. The legal counsel that we don't have is
neither of us.
Our imaginary
are lawyers,
legal counsel wants you to know.
It comes in at about 40 to 50% alcohol by volume, so it can be up to 100 proof, basically.
Oh my God.
The flavor, from what I understand, is mostly ouch. The flavor is ouch. It's usually made with palm wine, but it can also be made with sugarcane juice, maybe a mix of both to get a little bit more of a funky thing going on. But I feel like it's very similar to aguardiente in Latin America, which is just something that's pretty easy to make, just local distillation and very powerful. But I think locally, people refer to it more as a gin.
Okay. So we're talking a very like potent, mostly clear, can strip the paint off your toes if you're not careful turns boys into men. Sort of
Absolutely. Like this will put some hair on your chest kind of drink.
incredible.
The word akbateshi actually comes from a Ga phrase that means to go into hiding. This term comes around when imperialism starts running out of gas, at least in her early era. The English didn't like the local competition for the European spirits, so homebrewing and distilling was banned right around when we were getting out of prohibition in the States. So there's a few decades where couldn't make akbateshi, couldn't make palm wine, couldn't make a sorghum beer, just had to see what the Europeans brought over and go buy that.
And then once you were finished with that nonsense, you would go and find a guy who knew a guy who knew a lady.
And then you would just have a little drink, and it's like, officer, this is lemonade. I don't know what you're talking about.
So once again, we've circled back to drink of the people, drink of justice,
Yes.
drink of good sense in a proper society. We love to see it.
Yes, we get Ghanaian independence in 1957, but distillation isn't legalized again until 1962. Like even some Ghanaians were kind of like, I don't know, this was pretty powerful. Should we should we let people make this in, without any regulation?
Like,
I don't
we
know.
know this is the drink of the people, but like, can the people handle this?
Like, we're brand new. We're brand new country. Like, we're trying to show the world what we're all about. Should we do this? But then they did it. Like,
hey, yes. So can the people handle this? Well, it's for the people to decide.
Yes.
Start pouring.
Yeah, even though colonialism mostly brought trauma to Africa, it also brought European distillation techniques and also like just new grains like corn. So you start getting these new sorghum beers like umkombothi and Tella, and then others that I mentioned using cassava or even bananas.
Mm.
And these are all these like new world crops that are a huge part of African agriculture now. So some of these things you think would just are part of the general like African zeitgeist, especially West Africa, in the same way that you have to remind yourself that there's no tomato sauce in Italy before colonialism.
Yeah, tomatoes are a new world crop. Cassava is a new world crop. A lot of the root vegetables. It's the same way that, chilies are really closely associated with a lot of Chinese and just broader like Asian cooking, but chilies, also a new world crop.
Yeah.
So many things that are now considered sort of baked into the identity, food and drink wise of so many places are specifically from the Americas.
Mm-hmm. It's been fun to kind of from afar watch how things change. And, trade's not so bad when the things you're trading are actually things.
Yeah. Have you tried just not trading people?
Yeah. Just a quick suggestion for Europeans in the past. Like, what if it was just things? Why did you have to go so hard?
How about this? Things you paid for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Things you bought from the person who had it before you.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy idea.
For market rate, not, taking land for a bunch of beads.
I don't know. Try it. Could be fun.
Even with all of this new stuff, you still have these classic fermenting and distilling methods. So it's not just about getting drunk. It's about celebrating and commemorating those who've died and using what's around you to make something really special. And I think even as these liquors and alcohols get more popular, it's still really hard to categorize African alcohols on the world stage because they're all so unique.
Yeah, it's weird to even think of. I mean, this idea of like categorizing the things we eat and drink in general, right, is also actually pretty Western. Or at least categorizing them beyond just categories of like how they're supposed to make you feel or when you're supposed to have them is kind of a new weird thing when you think about it. And I know as soon as I say that, someone's going to pop up and be like, actually.
Okay, I think one of the last things I'll do is find out how right you were from your predictions.
Here we go, baby.
So you did correctly put sorghum beer in the mildest slot. Next would have been Booza, and you put palm wine. And then you went to Akpateshi, which is actually our number one kill me quick over Booza, which is quite mild and closer to sorghum beer.
Here's the real gag. I'm not gonna tell people differently. If I ever have the opportunity.
You want some Booza? Be careful.
Be careful. It's really strong.
You wouldn't like it. It's spicy.
This is a big people beverage. And it's just like a nutritious little snack in liquid form. I will warn them about Akpateshi though. That's different. They need to know about that.
That needs a disclaimer. Absolutely.
Yeah. 100%.
But yeah, it was really fun sharing this legacy and all these traditions of African alcohol, which is, I feel like, not something people talk about a whole lot.
I mean, this was fascinating. I feel so excited to have learned all this. I feel like it is just a great showcase of how diverse the African continent is and was. And I'm curious about how these drink making cultures and this drink making knowledge kind of changed as these groups spread out beyond the continent.
Well, that's a big topic, and we can get into that next time. But I gotta get off the phone. Someone's gotta get online. But we'll talk soon, and we'll talk about the West Indies and rum and all of the cool and some of the horrific, but mostly cool stuff that happened there.
And we're taking y'all with us.
Yes.
Woo, get excited.
Get your passports. We're going on a trip.
That was my little cruise liner horn. Bye, y'all.
Bye. All Mixed Up is a mixed media podcast hosted by Jay Fergus and Kasimobi Udo Okoye. You can support our podcast on Patreon and follow Jay's cocktail shenanigans at CheersMixJ on all platforms. That's Cheers MXJ. This podcast is edited by the incomparable Lindsay Zana, and our sick theme song is courtesy of Chris Bell. Special thanks go out to Michael Escanuelas, Jill Petrachik, and Austin Rusk. Thanks for listening, and remember to clink responsibly. Cheers.